Good morning, everybody. I hope you're well. Welcome to the Recruiting Gym Daily Stand-Up. We are touching distance from getting 500 subscribers since we started doing this. We're entering into nearing our 40th live stream, and so it's fantastic that you're all here. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be recapping on retainers and what Alan spoke about yesterday. We are going to be talking about rebuilding your pipeline, onboarding, and last but not least, how do we engage candidates? One thing I'm going to ask of you is a favor. In the chat there, I have put a link to the Recruiting Gym Lite. The Recruiting Gym Lite is just that. It is a, hang on a second. I've got to put the right one in. In fact, I put the wrong link in. Cool. So what I am really keen to do is to grow the network. Since the lockdown began, we have invited 600 recruiters to join the Recruiting Gym for free. And our mission is to help over 1,000 recruiters by the end of May. But in order to do that, we're going to need your help. That's right, your help. And so what we're really keen to do is to encourage you to share that link across your social networks. Please share it with colleagues. If you sell to recruiters, then please feel free to share that with your network as well. So, but we're really keen to help over 1,000 recruiters by the end of May. So let's crack on with the show. Alan, wasn't he fantastic? He put lots more effort into preparing than I do on a daily basis. So he was amazing. And what's great about Alan is that he's really practical and pragmatic. And what was interesting about his way of talking about selling retainers is that actually it wasn't any different to selling exclusivity. It was about building a relationship with a client, and it was about talking to a client about how they feel about the recruitment process. So the end game is just, look, the best way to work is for you to pay me a little bit upfront, or for you to do a project fee, whatever you want to call it. But it's about how do you differentiate your service offering and offer clients a little bit more for that. I think where retainers, work really well in today's market is when your client gives you a purple squirrel role, or a role that you know is going to involve a lot of sourcing effort. It's taking a step back and saying, how important is this role for you? And then explain to them and say, well, the challenge we've got is that this is going to probably take somewhere between 5 and 7 days focused effort to find a short list of candidates for you. If you give it to me exclusively, I can give you 3 days. If you're using other agencies, I can give you maybe 1 day. But if you work in a way whereby we work in a true partnership and you pay a resourcing fee up front, that will guarantee you the 5 days dedicated sourcing time to make sure we get the best person in the market. Because often I think I struggled when a client said, well, what part of your service aren't you going to deliver? And actually, there's some bits of your service that you will always deliver, whether it be contingent or retained. You're always going to give great feedback to clients. You're always going to try and meet the client face to face. The one thing that you can change about your service offering that doesn't dilute the quality is how much sourcing effort that you put in. If you've proactively recruited a talent pool, then you want to still charge more for that. So I know some recruiters have worked this way, which is if you just want to see who I can find on a job board, I'll charge you 15%. If you want to access my talent pool of people I know already that I have nurtured in advance of them looking for a vacancy, I charge you 20 because I put a lot of effort into that up front. So I've got to charge for that. But if you want me to go and really map the market and go deep into the market to get the very best candidates, it's going to take me a week to 10 days. And in order to do that, I need a project fee. And what that does is guarantee you resourcing time. And I will be able to give you a spreadsheet of who I found, who I've approached, and what the responses are for that. But that way, you know you're buying 100% of my effort. And I don't think we should shy away from the fact that directly telling a client is that the less commitment you give me, the less effort you get from me. And there shouldn't be any sadness in that. If I went to them, and I think Alan spoke about this, is in their business. If you work with a law firm, if you say, look, what I want you to do is I want you to give me a week of your work and I might pay you if your contracts are good, they'd laugh at you, right? With professional services firms, we are very unusual in the amount of legwork that we put up front without any commitment of getting paid. They wouldn't be in business if they did that. A lot of recruiters are struggling to stay in business by doing that. So it's really important that we develop courage. And actually, if you play back through some of the stand-ups that we've done, a lot of this is about talking to your clients about how do you feel about your recruitment service at the moment. If you could reimagine what a different approach would look like, how would it look for you? And that's really what we're trying to do. So please focus on talking to your clients about how you can re-engineer your service. We make a retainer just way too big, but the reality is they are buying dedicated sourcing effort. That's really the product that they're buying. Like Bob, how long you had this job open for? Right, a week, 2 weeks. How do you feel about the response? I'm pretty underwhelmed at the moment. How many agencies have you been using? 4. Right. Bob, can I let you know where the problem lies? Go ahead, Alex. Tell me where the problem lies. The problem is you've got a vacancy that requires maybe a week's dedicated sourcing effort from a recruiter, but because you're using 4 recruiters, you're maybe getting 1 day from 4 recruiters rather than a dedicated week. I've got a solution for you. Why don't you buy some dedicated sourcing time from me? And you pay for the sourcing time up front. And if we make a placement, we take that sourcing payment off the placement fee. You can see who we've approached. You can see what the responses would be. But what you're doing is buying dedicated sourcing time. How would you feel about that? Because you've said this role is really important. Didn't even mention retainer. What I've said is that you get dedicated sourcing effort. That's the easiest pitch in the world. I know that Angela's on the call today. When a client says, Alex, we'd like you to bespoke a training course for us, we don't go, oh, okay. We go, great. We're going to have to charge you additional work to prepare that course for you. Because that's sort of expected in the service world. If you want an off-the-peg solution, then it's slightly different. So see what you can do on that. The next thing we've got to think about is that your activity for the day. Oh, I'm going to do that now. Yeah, we're going to do this now. Your activity for the day is linked to rebuilding your pipeline. And as the lockdown eases, there is potentially significant upsides for recruiters and for clients. From what I understand, many clients have been concerned about offering people when they haven't physically met them and the individuals haven't physically seen the office. Many companies are reluctant to recruit because they don't believe they can onboard without physically spending some time with that individual. From today, if you cannot work from home, you are able to work in the office. And my proposition that I would suggest you give your client is that enables you to do a socially distanced second interview. It could be a socially distanced onboarding for their first day within the company. It doesn't mean to say they're in the office every day, but what they are doing is they're able to complete the bits of the process they're reluctant to do. So my recommendation for you today is to speak to all the clients that you knew had open vacancies in March. It was probably a long list. And what I'd like you to do is to ring those clients and say, hey, Barbara, how you doing? Great. I hope you're doing well. What we're obviously we're lockdown is easing, and I'm just curious, how might your ability to work for short periods in the office make you feel about conducting second interviews or socially distanced second interviews in the office? How do you feel being able to work sometimes in the office will help you onboard people when they start in the organization? How will those things impact your desire to recruit the roles that you were recruiting for a few weeks ago? Hopefully you've been keeping in touch with those clients. So this shouldn't be a, you haven't heard from us for 6 weeks. But what we're doing is really trying to, we're trying to engage the client in offering a recruitment solution to them. So there will be some movement on that. Remember, we're still supporting virtual recruitment processes. We're still supporting face-to-face interviews. We're still supporting phone interviews. We're still supporting Skype or Team or virtual interviews. But what we're doing is we're adding a virtual recruitment process. We're adding a second interview, which is face-to-face. Now, these things have already been happening, right? If candidates and clients live close together, I know plenty of second interviews that have taken place in a car park over a couple of cars, because people still feel they want that human contact. I know from a personal perspective, I work for clients that I haven't met, but will I resign from a current client? I'm not sure, especially when candidates are maybe concerned about the security of a role. Emma's basically said she only works retained. If anyone needs any help, just shout. They get tons of objections and we sometimes have to walk away. However, we fill all our roles. It's scary when you first start, but I promise if you hold your nerve, it will change your business. Emma, you're coming on for a stand-up. I'm gonna reach out to you. Drop me a message at alex@recruitinggym.com and let's get you on a stand-up, or let's actually have you on a dedicated learning webinar, because I'd love to talk to you about the objections that you get, the mindset shift that you needed to go from contingent to retained. Getting more exclusivity and commitment from clients is absolutely key to your success. So please be in touch, Emma. I'm not sure whether I've got your email address. So last but not least, candidates and candidate reservations. So what challenges are people having in engaging with candidates online? I spoke to directors of four or five senior directors of large agencies yesterday. And one of the trends that they're finding is that candidates' responsiveness on LinkedIn is not what it was. Candidates, it seems like, are in one of two camps. One is they are actively looking, so they might be furloughed or they might be uncertain of their security in their current employer. Or if they're feeling safe, they are holding tight. And the problem is that often it's the best candidates that feel secure. It's the ones that, because companies are going to be actively reassuring people that their job is safe. So what we're going to be doing tomorrow, we are going to be hosting our stand-up on how to engage candidates on LinkedIn. We will be interviewing Catherine, and we will be talking about how can we write better messages, more engaging messages on LinkedIn. What I would say though is this is your opportunity to make more from your candidate database. I know a lot of recruiters sometimes sit there and think, right, well, what am I going to do today? No one's recruiting. All your candidates are still at home. They ring them up and say, how are you feeling about your job in the next 6 months? How secure are you feeling? How happy are you feeling? There's going to be organizations that have got people furloughed for the next 2 months, but you might have a client that would actually be able to get someone working today. So that's what we're trying to do. So we've got 2 things to do today. One is call all your open vacancies that were open in March and just ask them how the easing of lockdown is changing their approach to recruitment. And the second one is we've got to start thinking about being much more proactive in engaging candidates. We might be in this really tricky period where economically we're not in a recession, or technically, so companies are still sort of hiring, but candidates are really holding on to the jobs that they've got. Collins, before I go, Collins just asked a question. How would you approach the conversation if you're signed up to a major contingency supplier frameworks for years with a client you want to shift to retain with them? As for years, they've used you one way and got a good service, so why would they change, especially when they know the market has shifted in their favor and they are hiring? That's a tricky one, Colin, and I'm sure Alan would have a response to that. Remember, Alan's going to be launching a course on how to sell retainers and a coaching group to help people transition to this environment. But my situation, Colin, is you have to almost change the service that you've got. It could be that that's one of the clients that you leave behind. Remember, we had Andy Hallett. He was like, choose which clients you want to take to the next level. Or what you can do is when they do have a role that you know requires purple squirrel, as Alan stole the words from my mouth, but it's not every role. But say, for example, when it's a role that's going to take a week or 10 days, just tell them that's going to be a lot of sourcing effort. The way we tend to work at the moment is that if it's a high level of sourcing effort, we generally tend to get a sourcing fee up front that's discountable off the total fee. How would your thoughts be on that? But what I do, Colin, is just speak to their client and ask them what their experience is of paying recruiters some of the fee up front. Don't use the word retainer. That's a bit like saying, do you want to get engaged? But it's about how do you feel about paying some of the fee up front? What difference do you think it would make if your hard roles, you engaged a recruiter to dedicate their time to sourcing as opposed to leaving it to the masses? See what their views are, see what your thoughts are. But in all likelihood, Colin, you're going to have to find another client to work that and use this one as a cash cow until you find your new market. And then you can be confident enough to say, well, if you want a little bit of Colin, you're going to have to pay me up front. Colin doesn't work for anyone, but it may take you a while to get to that. So goodbye, everybody. Please share that link to the recruiting gym. And hopefully we can get, there's also a link here as well, and we can go from there. So see